the witnesses for your testimony. One of the things that I've emphasized since joining the subcommittee last year is the importance of educating the public about the benefits of space exploration and justifying the investment, which those of us on the subcommittee all believe in. And one of the things I wanted to point out, and thank you for Mr. Witt, is in your testimony talking about how there's been this spin-off potential beyond aerospace, especially with the discoveries being applied to, for example, conventional internal combustion engines. And I think the more the public knows about benefits beyond that and all-important leadership, the more we can convince the public that these are wise investments in space. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Ms. Cooper, the commercial satellite industry is one of the first commercial space industries and has really seen significant growth over the years. So as you consider the range of activities and issues being discussed here today, can you tell us from your experience what lessons have been learned that could benefit the other emerging space enterprises?
Thank you. I think the commercial satellite industry in its origin has some similarities to other younger space ventures in that there were assumptions of a government role at the outset. There was an assumption that the idea of launching a satellite and building one was too complex, too costly, too risky for an individual company or country even to undertake it. As the experience grew and the confidence in the capability on orbit grew, and also as the idea of services and what was the value of those satellites grew, companies naturally entered the arena. I think that was a critical part for government regulation to establish rules of the road for a competitive environment, to allow enabling an environment, but also to establish how those companies would be able to compete with each other and what they for them, what they needed. For the commercial satellite industry, it's absolutely orbital slots, which is an international regime managed by the International Telecommunications Union, but also satellite spectrum, which is needed not only to manage the spacecraft, but also to deliver communication services. That's probably our biggest challenge right now, is that we've become almost so ubiquitous and so relied upon that the communications industry may forget that we're delivering these services from 22,000 miles away, and that there are significant considerations when you figure out how you might be able to share that spectrum. I would also just note the other consideration is safety and safety of flight. That's a genuine role for government regulation, and I think the partnership between industry and government is essential there to establish an understanding of what's in space and an understanding of what the private and government actors in space are doing for the safety of all in space. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And for all of you, the work that your organizations are performing calls for innovation, certainly a highly skilled workforce to achieve the goals, and certainly a competitive environment. So how important is the workforce to the growth of commercial space? And from your perspective, what's the most important thing we can do to ensure the future viability and sustainability of a workforce that's prepared for this type of work? I'll start with Mr. Witt. Your thoughts on that?
Ms. Bonamici, that's a great question, and that goes right to my heart. Last 10 years, I've served on a college, 11 years served on a college board, and I've learned a little bit about the education process in America. But for the last 20 years in my businesses and at my current business, I've required each one of my employees to spend 4 hours a year in a classroom. And to a person, when I had my company or when my current, everybody said only 4 hours. And I said, just curious, but how many did you do last year? And we all know the answer to that, don't we? 0. And to set a standard in your own business, and from your seats as members of Congress, you have the opportunity to speak to people all over this nation all the time. You all get invited for public events. People listen to your words, your policy and your words. Make it part of your daily speech to promote science and technology nationwide in this nation. Do the little things. When you walk into a mast and space system, and I bring in teachers, we brought in students, but we now found out, teachers in classrooms, like I think I learned in our discussion at lunch one day, they have all the kids. If we bring them in for an hour, we have 100 kids and me for an hour, but these teachers have the kids all year long. Bring the teachers in. Spend a day with 30 teachers, and they have access to these kids for a year. Show them the passion. Show them the people. Take them into a mast and space systems and let them ask an engineer, if you could talk to your science teacher today in high school, what would you tell them? I remember that question specifically. And the kid with the wrenches and the T-shirts building a rocket says, it would have been nice of you to come by my desk every now and then, but you're always worried about the lowest kid in the class or the brightest kid in the class, but somewhere I was lost in the middle. Those are powerful things to learn on the shop floor of a rocket factory. But those are lessons we can extend and you can extend in all of your daily activities in lunchrooms. Make it the standard that people make every employee that works for them spend 4 hours a year in a classroom. My janitor, who's trilingual, spends 4 hours a year in a classroom. There's a job for every kid, and their job is important.
That's great. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I've run out of time. I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.